Hello and welcome to Sunday Afternoon Cars. Today we're looking at the new car, the Audi RS-9. Just joking, hello and welcome to the Sunday Afternoon Modular. In this video we're gonna have a look at the RS-9 rhythm sequencer from Behringer. Yes, it's a Eurorack module, and yes, it is huge, so you better have some space left in your case. The RS-9 is a step sequencer, so its main use is to trigger drums. It comes with 10 channels. Each channel can have up to 64 steps. You can store up to 64 patterns and 16 songs. I have always used the Arturia BeatStep Pro for such things, which is an external, feature-rich sequencer that includes a step sequencer as well, with 8 trigger outputs. Many of the smaller modules did not give me all the options I need, and they are often confusing because everything is packed into a small space. So I have no problem with the BeatStep being an external device, but maybe you like to have it all in your case? In this case, the RS-9 could be interesting for you. What I like is that it's quite easy to program a first drum beat. You just choose the channel and then choose which steps shall be active. So I can just connect my drum modules and easily start creating a beat without having to deep dive into the module. One thing to notice, when I wanted to program the first beat with this module, the steps kept disappearing after they were played. So make sure you press the record knob before, otherwise it will not save your steps. Now, of course, for all the advanced options this module brings, it is recommended to read the manual. Behringer claims that the module comes with a continuously variable swing, allowing you to mimic a real drummer and give the beats you create a more human feel. Now, I am a real drummer, and as you can imagine, I highly doubt that you're getting anywhere close to what the real drummer does. But it definitely helps to bring some variety into your beats, especially if you're not after 4 on-the-floor techno beats. Now let's have a quick look at the module. On top we have a trigger out, an accent out and a select button for each of the 10 channels. On the right there are 16 keypad buttons. Those are used to program your beat, but also to choose between different settings. Then we have a bit lost an autofill button down here, which actually is a very cool function. When you are in pattern play mode, and for instance pattern 1 is playing, you can press autofill and select another pattern. Let's say we choose pattern 2. Now pattern 2 will play after pattern 1, but once pattern 2 has been played, it will automatically return to pattern 1. Without autofill, it would just play pattern 2 over and over until you manually change to pattern 1 again. So, autofill can be a very useful function, especially in live situations. There is a section for step and note repeat to create some nice effects. Step repeat repeats a part of the whole pattern, including all channels, whereas note repeat only affects the selected channel. You can start this effect by holding down the trigger button. It stays active as long as you push the button down and stops when you release it. In this section, you can set the length of a pattern to a maximum of 64 steps. You can change between song, pattern and step mode. Step mode is used to program a beat or pattern. Further, you can mute and solo each track. With the accent button, you can place an accent on the current active step. Now, to use accents, your module needs to support this. In the best case, it has an accent CV input, where you can patch the accent output to. The level knob is used to change the level of the CV output, to which I will come later. There is a basic display. You can tap in the tempo or use the step control knob, and there are transport controls which include record, stop, play and pause. There are edit functions such as save, copy, erase and dump. With save you can save the current pattern or song. You can store up to 64 patterns and 16 songs. With copy you can make a copy of the current pattern. So you could create a copy on save location 2 from the pattern that is stored on save location 1. This is cool if you only want to make some slight differences to a pattern, so you don't have to manually program the whole pattern again. With erase you can delete saved patterns or songs. And what the heck is dump? With this button you can initiate a sysax dump of the RS-9's memory. And what is a sysax dump, you might ask? Well, it takes all the MIDI settings or patches or sound banks from a synth and saves it to a sysax file. This file then can be shared with others, for instance, so they can load your patches onto their synth. Unfortunately, Behringer does not specify what's included in this sysax dump, but I believe it's the saved patterns and songs. You can choose between different modes: tempo, swing, probability and flam. All those settings can be applied globally on a song or on a pattern. Tempo sets the tempo of the song in BPM. Swing plays the steps slightly delayed. Probability sets the chance if a step is played or not. Now, a flam originally is a drum rudiment, wherein a drummer strikes a grace note just a split second before striking the primary stroke, to set an accent or to thicken the strike. Here with the RS-9, it is more what a burst module would do with the sound. If you don't know what a burst module does, check out my video of the 2HB burst. It's linked in the video description. You can sync the RS-9 with its internal clock, via MIDI, USB, or use an external clock module. Last but not least, a CV out, a reset input, a USB-C port, and MIDI in and out ports. Now, the RD9 drum computer, on which the RS-9 is based, obviously, had a filter built in that could be applied to its voices. As the RS-9 does not have its own voices, you can use the CV out to control external effects, such as a filter module, which then can be applied to whatever voice sources the RS-9 is controlling. The CV level can be adjusted with the level knob. The reset input, for people new on this topic: if it receives a trigger signal, it will reset the current pattern to its first step. The USB-C socket finally, it's not only here to update the firmware of the RS-9, you can actually use it for MIDI over USB, which is interesting for those who want to integrate the RS-9 in their DAW. Now, to program a drum beat is relatively easy. Make sure you are in step mode and that record is active. Select the channel you want to program. Now just select the keys where the RS-9 shall send a trigger signal to your drum module. If you, for instance, want the flam effect on one of your steps, just push Settings, choose Flam, and afterwards select the step you want the flam effect on. The intensity of the effect can be controlled with the step knob. Now let's jam around a bit, and at the end I will tell you my personal pros and cons for this module. I will not dive in too deep, because I have the module now for only a few days and there are still some options I have to explore. But what I will show you is how to create an easy beat, how to save it as a pattern, and how to switch between different patterns. For this demo, I have patched the RS-9 to the SLD and S909 modules from Soundforce. Alright, let's go! Welcome back! I will tell you now what I like and what I don't like about the Behringer RS-9 rhythm sequencer. I like the design and find the module clear and easy to use. Given its big size, it is very comfortable to use. It's also decent built and feels good. And the price, of course, is an absolute banger. There are so many, sometimes confusing step sequencers out there, with a ton of functions on minimal space, where every button has at least 2 functions, often no display, and where you just have to read the manual before you can actually use the sequencer. And this is what I like here. It only takes you a couple of minutes to understand the basic functions, and you can immediately start programming a beat. Then there is something I'm not sure if I can put it to the cons. There is not really a manual for this device. However, there is a quick start guide available on Behringer's website that explains everything you need to know. As long as you have some knowledge and know what things like Flam, probability, swing, and so on mean. For starters, it would have been great to have a real manual that explains certain things in detail. I think there are actually 3 types: those who absolutely hate manuals, those who want a manual that quickly and in short tells you about the functions, that would be me in most of the cases, and those who would like to have a manual with more detailed information. So for me, the quick start guide does it. However, I think a detailed manual for this module would not be a wrong thing to do. Years back, most modules wouldn't have a manual and you had to figure it out for yourself. These days, luckily, most manufacturers have learned how important a manual is. But there are still some lazy ones. Now to the real cons. I mentioned the big size of the module, which makes it comfortable to use. The size, on the other hand, is also something not everyone will like. And to be honest, they could have made the module a bit smaller at least. I can already hear some people say rack space is money. What I also don't like is the display. It is old school and can only display 4 characters at a time. A small OLED display would have been nice. This would have made the settings easier to read. Of course, Behringer tries to keep the cost as low as possible. But wouldn't you have been willing to pay more for the product if it had a nice OLED display? What I personally don't need and is wasted space for me are the MIDI connectors. Because I use it in a modular synth context where I need control voltage signals rather than MIDI signals. What I would have done is to place them on an expander module, so those who need MIDI ports to control external synths and drum machines via MIDI can get the expander. Another thing, as they claim you can mimic a real drummer and it gives the beats you create a more human feel, where is the velocity? Having variable swing is nice. Swing means that it's not 100% in time and a little off here and there. Now with velocity, you can control how hard the drum is hit, which at the end affects the volume. Maybe they will add this function in a future firmware update. To be fair, velocity is a MIDI function. In the modular synth world, the drum module would need to support a thing such as velocity. This is where we are often limited in the modular synth world and need to find other creative solutions, which in many cases is possible. I always say if you hate to be creative and experiment around, modular synths are probably the wrong thing for you. Clearly, the RS-9 is made for modular synths and outboard gear like external drum computers. I would have loved a module that is more focused specifically on modular synths, because that is where I'm gonna use it. But I do understand with all the synths and drum machines Behringer has, they wanted to create something that goes for both worlds, which might be exactly what some are looking for. It's always a personal preference, and there are enough other step sequencer modules available, so I think everyone will find their favorite module. But after all, I really do like the RS-9. It's easy to understand, easy to program, and it looks and feels nice. Now, I would like to know, would the Behringer RS-9 be something for you? Or is it too big, too massive, and does not cover your needs? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. I hope this video was interesting for you. It took me a good 16 hours from the first idea to the final steps. So, if you enjoy my video, you will make me very happy if you leave a like, share it with your friends that might be interested, and if you aren't already, become a subscriber. It's only a click for you, but it helps a small channel like mine enormously. Thank you for supporting small channels. So long, have a great day, evening or night, and see you next time on the